The Pilgrim's Progress, delivered under the similitude of a dream, the third part. After the two former dreams concerning Christian and Christiana his wife, with their children and companions' pilgrimage from the city of destruction to the region of glory, I fell asleep again, and the visions of my head returned upon me. I dreamed another dream, and, behold, there appeared unto me a great multitude of people in several distinct companies and bands, travelling from the city of destruction, the town of carnal policy, the village of morality, and from the rest of the cities, towns, villages, and hamlets that belong to the valley of destruction, for so was the whole country called that lay on this side of the Wicket-gate, which the man evangelist showed unto Christian, and so was also all that country called, that was situated wide of the gate on the right hand, and on the left, extending itself along the walls and borders of that region wherein lay the way to the heavenly country. This was the name of that country, even the valley of destruction. Now I saw in my dream that all the highway roads and lanes that led from the valley of destruction towards the gate of the way of life were full of people who were travelling toward that gate, and some of them walked along very vigorously, others halted and grew weary through the violent heat of the season, which made them even ready to faint, for it was in the hottest time of all the year, and the sun burnt up the herb of the field, and scorched the poor travellers, so that many of them were forced to sit down and rest themselves, and in the night time many of them returned back again to their old habitations. The Slough of Despond. Others, more hardy than the rest, went on till they came to the Slough of Despond, where Pliable forsook Christian, and there, falling into the filth and mire of that place, were so disheartened that they returned in whole droves to their own dwellings again, and very few there were who would venture through the slough, yet some got very dexterously over the steps without being in the least bemired, whilst others, through ignorance or heedlessness, missing those steps, were forced to wade through the dirt, which was very deep, and made their passage exceeding painful, but at length, with much ado, they weathered the point and mastered the difficulties of that horrid quagmire, and got safe upon dry ground. Among the rest of the travellers that got over this slough, I saw a young man of an amiable countenance walking by himself after he had got clear of the slough, but he was all over bedaubed with the filth of that place, which made him go very heavily on. For what with struggling to get through, and what with the apprehensions he lay under during his passage, he was extremely weakened, and his joints were loosened. Besides, it was the nature of the dirt of this place to cause a trembling and disorder in the limbs of those that were defiled with it, and to whatsoever part of their body it stuck, there it would do them some injury. Now the young man, being all over clammed with it, he went with a very slow pace, his head hanging down, his hands quivering and his feet tripping at the least unevenness or ruggedness in the way, and a speck or two of the dirt being spattered in his eyes made him dim-sighted, so that he groped along like one that is blind, and sometimes stepped out of the path. In this condition he was, when at length I saw in my dream that he sat down upon the ground to bemoan his sad estate, and he wept very bitterly, and behold, a bright cloud hovered over his head, which gradually descending overshadowed him, and out of the cloud a hand was reached forth, which, with the tears that ran like rivers from his eyes, washed the dirt from off his face and his whole body, so that, in a moment, as it were, his sight and his strength were restored to him again. And a voice came out of the cloud, saying, Son of man, go on in the strength of the Lord thy God. So he was mightily comforted and refreshed after this, and began to rouse up himself, being more nimble and active, more vigorous and strong than he ever was before. And his eyes being healed also, he clearly saw the shining light that Evangelist showed to Christian. Then he tripped along over the plain and made directly up to the shining light, by means of which he quickly found the Wicket-gate, at which he knocked aloud, minding what was written over the gate, viz., Knock, and it shall be opened. The Wicket-gate. Now I saw in my dream that as soon as he had knocked at the Wicket-gate, a whole shower of arrows shot at him from the castle of Beelzebub, so that he was wounded in several places, and extremely frighted at the adventure, which made him knock again and again very hard, for fear that those that shot at him should come and kill him outright before he could get in. But presently, to his great comfort, the gate was opened to him, and when he that opened the gate saw the arrows sticking in his flesh, he bid him haste in, for fear of more danger. So he stepped in and made obeisance to the man that opened the gate, for he seemed to be a person worthy of reverence by his grave countenance and composed behaviour. So he spake to the man, whose name was Goodwill, and said, Sir, having heard of the fame of the heavenly country, and being informed by several travellers that the way to it was by this gate, I, being weary of living in the valley of destruction, and earnestly desirous to see that region of bliss, humbly make bold to knock at this gate, which you have been graciously pleased to open to me, for which high favour I return you my humble and hearty thanks. But as I stood at the gate, after I had knocked the first time, I was shot with these arrows, which you see sticking in my flesh, and fear I am mortally wounded, for my spirits fail me, and there is a mist before my eyes. And with that he fell at Goodwill's feet, begging him to tell him where he might find one that had skill to probe his wounds and cure him, if not mortal. So Goodwill, taking compassion on the young man, asked his name. "My name," replied the young man, "is Tender Conscience. I was born and bred in the town of Vain Delights." Then Goodwill, having registered the young man's name, wrote a certificate and gave it to him, bidding him deliver it at the next house, which was the house of the interpreter, withal showing him the way to it, for it was but a little way off from the gate. "There," says he, "you will find a remedy for your wounds, and see many glorious things." Then I saw in my dream that Goodwill gave to Tender Conscience a strong crutch made of lignum vitae, or the tree of life, to rest himself upon and ease his feet as he went along, he having nothing before in his hand but a weak twig of vain opinions, which he gathered from the tree of knowledge, growing on the banks of the waters of confusion. This weak reed was all the staff that Tender Conscience leaned upon in his journey, till such time as Goodwill, bidding him throw it away, gave him the aforesaid crutch, which he bid him be sure not to part with, for that it would be of singular use to him all the way, and especially now he was wounded, for it had a particular virtue to stay the bleeding of wounds. So Goodwill, having given Tender Conscience ample directions to find the way, bid him farewell, and left him to go forward on his journey.